Notably missing from the Firestorm Battle Royale options when it launched 2.5 weeks ago was a duos mode alongside solo and squad, but at least it offers more options than the other EA Battle Royale game, Apex Legends. That all changed when the Firestorm duos mode was finally introduced. However, it's only available for the weekend, much to the ire of Battlefielders everywhere. Apparently, even though Firestorm was delayed 4 months after the already pushed back launch, duos mode was actually still in the development phase until now, which seems quite ridiculous that DICE thinks that making a team size different will completely change how the game plays. The only two scenarios for Firestorm that matter are solo and not solo because of things like opening bunkers, vehicles, and capturing objectives that play out completely different if you're a single player versus a team, and 2 is divisible by 64, but apparently math isn't a strong suit over at DICE. This announcement is both not what the community actually wants, in spite of the rationale being small windows force more people to play things to gather data on it, even though, as I mentioned, you shouldn't even fucking need data on it before making it a permanent mode, but it's also done with absolutely no inkling that it was going to be happening this particular weekend in a surprise motherfucker fashion that doesn't work in this case compared with Apex Legends, because it's a mode that's been anticipated since launch instead of an out-of-the-blue, completely different Battle Royale experience. Lately, the communication from the development team has actually been doing a lot better, but this shite is just unacceptable. Hopefully they'll eat enough shit from people to make it a permanent addition to Firestorm, unlike Conquest Small and Rush being 2-week-only affairs, but hey, at least it's longer than 4 fucking days. However, looking at Blackout's sudden removal of its duos mode because of a fracturing player base, which is one of the reasons in the Reddit post for not making it a permanent Firestorm edition as of yet, it should be obvious to DICE that lower player population happens when you lock your Battle Royale mode behind a paywall barrier to entry when its competitors like Apex and Fortnite can be played for free. While this news is disappointing and DICE has just been downright supercalifragilisticexpialidocious at getting people hyped up about their Tides of War live service buzzword excuse to ship a shell of a game littered with broken promises as time goes by, there's a data miner on Reddit that goes by the name Temporial that is basically doing the work of the EA's marketing team, so no wonder why they let 350 employees go. Anyways, when the patch was released on Thursday, players were accidentally able to purchase upcoming weekly Chapter 3 reward weapons before a hotfix removed that loophole, and there are also tons of new weapons found in the game files, including 3 different brand new categories: pistol carbine, bolt action carbine, and anti-material rifles. The Commando carbine, also called the Delisle files, is next week's reward, and the L26 LMG for week 5's reward that I already mentioned could be accidentally purchased are there, alongside the M28 Tromboncino, that's a modified Carcano bolt action rifle from Battlefield 1 with a grenade launcher attachment for the meta class as a week 6 reward. There's the M2 carbine tied to the Chapter 4 5v5 mode, and more on that later, which is a select fire auto or semi-auto variant of the M1A1 that's already in the game, so it's just an easy change for DICE. The Breda PG rifle that has a burst mode, which players of Call of Duty World War II will recognize as the ITRA burst. A Carabin 1938M that was also in Call of Duty World War II under the sniper category, but it's actually a semi-automatic rifle, so it's unclear if this is yet another assault weapon or if it's going to be an SLR for the scout class. For the support class, the MG30, that is again another easy model replica of already existing similar MMGs in the MG34 and MG42, as well as a Winchester 1937 shotgun that's basically an American version of the M30 drilling with an alternate fire that will load a slug shot in front of the normal buckshot rounds. The P08 Luger artillery pistol carbine, which belongs in one of those aforementioned new weapon classes for the meta class as a week 7 reward, and the MAB38 SMG, also for medics, is a week 12 reward that Call of Duty World War II players will know as the Orzo. That's also a similar gun model to the Suomi to round out the newest weapons. There's also a collection of weapons in the files that are going to be easy ports over from the previous Battlefield game, with the M1919 Browning, Madsen, Chausson, and Sjogren shotgun for the support class, as well as the M1917 Enfield for the scout class, and finally in primary weapons, the already leaked in a previous patch Sterling Wellgun and Lanchester SMGs. So it seems that the meta class is going to be getting a lot of love soon, both in terms of new SMGs and getting some longer range potential weapons with the carbine weapon classes, since it currently has the least amount of weapons for its class compared to others. For sidearms, there's the Well-Rod, Model 27 revolver, and PPK, James Bond's favorite weapon, which there is a suppressed variant found in files here just to tickle those 007 fancies. And there's also a machine pistol weapon class, but aside from leftovers from Battlefield 1, it's as empty as the faction list in the game aside from the British and Germans, and more on that later. There's also a ton of gadgets, but they all seem to be tied to the 5v5 game mode. That's DICE's favorite 4-letter word, soon, in Chapter 4 that I'll talk about later. But to round out Chapter 3, the challenges for weeks 4 through 12 until mid-June have also been leaked. However, the actual numbers and thresholds for those challenges have yet to be revealed. I'm not going to rattle all of them off because although regurgitating information from text form to video form is somehow a lucrative practice on YouTube, there's just way too fucking many of them and you people can read, right? Instead, I'm just going to highlight the interesting ones. Like for week 4 to get that aforementioned commando carbine, you're going to need to play rounds of grind, earning score in grind, and healing teammates or damaging enemies in grind, so that all but confirms that the Conquest Small mode rename will be coming to the game next week on April 18th. Week's 5 reward of the L26 LMG has a task to kill or down enemies or getting vehicle assist while in a helicopter in Firestorm, which is the only specific Battle Royale challenge for the week, to the joy of players grinding through this week everywhere, although it's one that means that you're an easy target for people smart enough not to go for a joyride in the first helicopter ever made. In week 6, in order to get that Trombone Sino M28, you're going to need to play an undisclosed number of combined arms missions on Fiel 652 in spite of the original roadmap saying that this would actually be delivered in April, yet week 6 starts on May 2nd. So even on that lackluster roadmap, DICE still hasn't been able to deliver on time. The bonus task for the week after you obtain the weapon is to deal damage to vehicles with the grenade launcher attachment of that M28 Trombone Sino, which basically confirms the alt-fire noob tube that I mentioned earlier. Week 7 will grant you the P08 Luger artillery pistol, and it also comes with the tradition of having tasks basically forcing players into actually playing the combined arms mode that was under-delivered false advertising on only a subset of maps after being delayed 3 months from launch. Week 8, starting May 18th, requires playing a round of Fortress, which is another new game mode, and by new, of course, I mean a slight variation on an existing one with Breakthrough set on Devastation to take or hold the Cathedral, Hamada to take or defend the fort, and Rotterdam with an undisclosed objective. Week 9 has lots of challenges that relate to vehicles and tanks, so I'm assuming the reward will be a new vehicle or new vehicle skin that we'll touch on later in the video. Week 10, starting on May 30th, there is no data regarding the to-do list. However, the week is titled Mercury, which we know is the name of the second map to be released, and of course, in typical DICE fashion, it's at the 11th hour according to their roadmap, sneaking in at the very end of May, which is a pathetic cadence for new maps, and the last edition would be a half a year earlier at that point with Panzerstorm. Week 11 starts on June 6th, and the Outpost game mode shows up in the challenges with things like building, repairing, upgrading, or destroying radio towers, so it seems like it's going to be a combination Conquest Rush-like game mode on steroids, although the description says, spread the word and find new recruits in this multiplayer mode coming in June. In Outpost, you'll build and secure objectives to ensure your team assembles enough soldiers and resources to endure through the fight. Isn't it amazing how 2 sentences can have all those words, yet say abso-fucking-lutely nothing? Week 12 will grant us the MAB 38, like I said earlier, but it also gives us more information about Outposts, as it says in the description of one of the challenges that scout spawn beacons are valuable because you cannot spawn on radio towers. Finally, on to Chapter 4, I spoke about a 5v5 game mode, and it will actually be multiple modes in a 5v5 setting: Extraction, which we know of from Combined Arms, Breakthrough, King of the Hill like the first part of Frontlines, and Holdout, which is basically Rush on a timer. Much like the Incursions mode in Battlefield 1 that only lasted 18 months, 5 of which are going to be out of its life cycle before being sunset at the end of this month, the rules are very different than the normal multiplayer mode and require squad members to fulfill roles. First, a squad leader has to nominate a doctrine for the squad, of which there are 6 to choose from: the SAS Rangers, Army Rangers, Devil's Brigade, which is a combination of American and Canadian forces, Volks Grenadiers, German MSK, and Italy's Decima Mas. These doctrines will give squads 3 bonuses of a possible 13 that you can read off the list about via the link in the description. After this song and dance, there's then a kit selection process that lasts for 30 seconds that has 3 different preset loadouts for each of the 4 normal classes and 2 special traits that are associated with each. As an example, a Shock Assault player gets Heal on Kill, restoring 30% health when killing an enemy, and 5 Bullet Death Punch upon on the worst metal band ever assembled. When you have 5 or fewer bullets in your weapon, melee attacks are always a takedown, much to the chagrin of one-hit melee haters like myself everywhere. In addition to these 12 kits, there are 3 additional Captain kits which might be reserved for the squad leader. Lots of these traits deal with brand new gadgets such as the German Panzerbusch 38 and British Boys AT rifle that are going to fit in that new anti-material rifle category, which will probably behave similar to the Tank Hunter Elite class from Battlefield 1. There's a Goliath mine that actually behaves similar to an RCXD as a remote-controlled explosive car. The Panzer Shrek anti-tank launcher, M1A1 bazooka, American equivalent of the current Panzerfaust rocket launcher, a Type 89 knee mortar Japanese grenade launcher, and finally something for medics perhaps with a buff Surette that will enhance the abilities of the target or if you stab yourself like a junkie. Additional gadgets are the RMN-50 rifle frag launcher, a Soviet gadget, T-17 radio jammer, a breaching charge for kicking in the door like Biggie sang, flashbangs, shape charge, AT mines, tripwire smoke, a non-lethal variant of everyone's least favorite way to die, the anti-air Fliegerfaust, a deployable MMG for those Lord Tachanka mains in Rainbow Six Siege, and an M80 firecracker, which I guess will be used to celebrate victory or annoy the shit out of your opponents like the bottle rockets from Fortnite. It's unclear if these gadgets will make their way into the normal multiplayer mode or if they're for 5v5 only. There's also going to be 4 vehicles in the 5v5 mode with 1 active per squad, the Panzer 30AT and Panzer IV for the Axis, and Staghound and Valentine for allies, which I'll go more into vehicles later. Remember the province map that was previously leaked? Yeah, it's one of the special maps for the scaled down set of modes, along with Norway, which was tweeted by a developer that they weren't done with the location, and the cynic in me thinks it'll be parts from the War Story campaign reimagined for multiplayer. Libya, which could be part of Aerodrome or again from the African War Story. Rotterdam, which probably isn't the same one that we all loathe, and Casquettes, which points to a pair of raids on a lighthouse located on the Channel Island, so I guess they'll just take the D objective from Heligoland Bight. There's also a picture file of a map containing the German city of Aachen, found in files which, if you remember from Call of Duty World War II, is a very small urban map, which might be the upcoming map just named Urban, to be released during Chapter 4. That would be a reskin of a prior cityscape from another Battlefield game. What I still can't fathom is why DICE continues to put resources towards shit that nobody in the community is asking for, like more maps for the Terabad co-op mode or a completely separate competitive 5v5 playlist in a game that's known for its epic 32v32 sandbox battles, not for competitive play. At least it won't be a completely separate client like Battlefield 1's Incursions, although I'm still not sure about that, and it's obvious that this mode is an evolution from the prior effort, but esports and competitive just isn't synonymous with Battlefield, and even if it was, it should be something that's done on launch with the game when it's at its most hype, not 7 months later at the earliest, again, taking a page from Call of Duty with League play, not launching until 5 months later, and rarely anybody is even playing it. More development resources on shit that players actually want, like new maps and beepity bops to use instead of offerings that are just going to be fucking DOA. Although vehicle customization was talked about during the reveal almost 11 months ago, it's still not in Battlefield 5, but there are new files containing different types of dressings for both turret and chassis that are completely different than the current vehicle skins. So we're definitely going to get vehicle customization soon. Also with vehicles, there are 14 new ones that are slated for Chapter 5's Awakening the Giant, and given that they are all either US or Japanese in nature, it's obvious that the new theater in the Tides of War roadmap will be the Pacific Theater and not the Eastern Front. There are 3 medium tanks, the American M4A3 Sherman and the Japanese Type 97 and Type 3 tanks. The Ford GPW, aka the Jeep Wrangler, staff car, and Kurogane Type 95 for military officers. In the air, the American Vought F4U Corsair and Japanese Mitsubishi A6M0. Also in a completely new category to Battlefield 5 in the sea, the Type 2 Kami and LVT amphibious tanks, probably going to be similar to the Schwimmwagen, the American PT and Japanese MTB T1 torpedo boats, the American LCVP that's infamous for those Normandy beach landing recreations, and the dinghy, which is basically like a lifeboat that was used for transporting cargo. Also with new factions, the last patch brought about the derisively named Boynes Battlefield Premium currency, but also elite kits that are cosmetic soldiers that are not only new items to play dress up with in an FPS, but have special melee weapon and voiceover lines. From the Chapter 2 trailer, yes, that's the 3-month period prior to the current one that they're in, and these items still haven't been delivered. There's new details about Ernst for the Axis and Seamus for the Allies, but there's also a completely new elite soldier called Hannah Delacroix that is a French resistance fighter that has several different artworks associated with the character. In addition, there have been found several other soldier kits for both a French faction shown here and 2 different Italian soldier sets, which could point to these new factions coming sometime in Chapter 4, of which there are plenty of weapons that I mentioned earlier from these 2 different countries that are in game files. Looking at the Battlefield 5 roadmap itself, it seems pretty barren, but there are definitely things going on underneath the covers if you peer hard enough, and while I understand the developers can't comment on, DICE certainly isn't helping themselves by constantly fumbling updates, and even the trailers that they do make contain items that haven't actually been realized in game. Basically, they're not giving us players hope in any way, shape, or form that things are going to get better with their live service that has thus far been an abject fucking failure. If it wasn't for these data mines, players would have absolutely nothing to look forward to. Anyways, I've been DashWads27, off like a prom dress after the dance. Until next time.